The world you grew up in is gone. It didn't end with a bang. It didn't end with a treaty signed in a palace. It ended in a spreadsheet. For 40 years, we lived in a fantasy. A fantasy where you could make a product in Shanghai, ship it to Rotterdam, package it in Poland, and sell it in New York for $5. And somehow, everyone made money. We called it globalization. We were told it was inevitable. We were told it was permanent. We were told that trade would stop wars. Visual, intense close-up of the narrator or a dramatic silhouette. They were wrong. The system is breaking. But not because of politicians screaming on television. And not because of voters changing their minds. Globalization is collapsing because the math no longer works. The hidden costs, the costs we ignored for decades, have finally come due. And the bill is terrifying. We are watching the reversal of the greatest economic engine in human history. And what comes next isn't a recession. It is a complete rewiring of how civilization survives. Visual, the text, the reversal, appears on screen, burning away like old film. Before we show you exactly why your cost of living is about to change forever, I have a question for you. If the global supply chain collapsed tomorrow, how many days could you survive on what is currently in your house? Think about it. Really think about it. And while you're thinking, take a second to subscribe to the channel. Like this video. Leave a comment below with your answer. Because by the end of this video, you might realize that number is much lower than you hope. Let's begin with the first fracture. Argument number 1. The illusion of infinity. For 30 years, we operated under a single, dangerous assumption. We assumed that resources were infinite. And we assumed that transport was free. In the 1990s, after the Soviet Union fell, the world opened up. Suddenly, 2 billion workers entered the global labor market. From Eastern Europe, from China, from India. Labor became cheap. So cheap, it felt infinite. Corporations realized they didn't need to innovate to make money. They just had to move. Move the factory to where the people were hungry. Move the pollution to where the regulations were weak. It was the era of labor arbitrage. You take a job worth $30 an hour in Michigan. You move it to a place where it costs 30 cents an hour. You pocket the difference. It was easy money. And because oil was cheap and the oceans were safe, shipping that product back to the US or Europe cost pennies. We built a world based on the idea that moving a television 8,000 miles was basically free. But that era relied on a specific set of conditions. Conditions that no longer exist. Visual, a graph showing Chinese wages skyrocketing. The infinite supply of cheap labor? It's over. China's population is shrinking. Their wages have risen by hundreds of %. The factory of the world is now just as expensive as parts of Europe. So companies looked for the next China. Vietnam. Too small. India. Infrastructure isn't ready. Africa. Political instability. There is no next China. We have run out of planet. The easy growth is gone. And now, companies are realizing that chasing the lowest wage is a trap. Because when you spread your supply chain across 12 different countries to save 10 cents on a zipper, you introduce 12 different points of failure. Which brings us to the second hidden cost. The cost that is currently bleeding the global economy dry. Argument number 2. The death of just-in-time. Visual. A massive modern warehouse, empty. Conveyor belts stopped. You have heard of just-in-time manufacturing. It is the philosophy that runs the modern world. Toyota perfected it. Apple mastered it. The idea is simple. Inventory is waste. Don't keep parts in a warehouse. Have the parts arrive at the factory exactly 4 hours before they are needed. Efficiency. Lean. Fast. It works beautifully when the world is perfect, when the oceans are calm, when there are no pandemics, when there are no wars. But we do not live in a perfect world anymore. We live in a world of chaos. Just in time was a gamble. We bet our entire civilization on the idea that nothing would ever go wrong. And then, everything went wrong. Look at the Red Sea. A group of rebels with cheap drones effectively shut down one of the most important trade routes on Earth. Look at the Panama Canal. A drought, a simple lack of rain, reduced the number of ships that could pass through. Nature and war are attacking our choke points. In the old model, if a ship was late, it was an annoyance. In the just-in-time model, if a ship is late, the factory stops. If the factory stops, the product disappears. If the product disappears, the company creates zero revenue. We prioritized efficiency over resilience. We built a race car that could go 200 miles per hour, but it explodes if it hits a single pothole. Now, corporate CEOs are waking up in a cold sweat. They are realizing that efficiency is dangerous. So they are shifting to a new model. Just in case. They are hoarding parts. They are building massive warehouses. They are holding months of inventory. Do you know what happens when you hold inventory? It costs money. Storage costs money. Insurance costs money. Capital tied up in boxes costs money. This is a hidden tax on everything you buy. That smartphone in your pocket? It's about to get more expensive. Not because the technology is better, but because the company making it has to spend billions of dollars preparing for the next disaster. The era of hyper-efficiency is dead. We are entering the era of redundancy. And redundancy is expensive. This leads us directly into the third hidden cost. The one that hits your heating bill. The one that hits the gas pump. Argument number 3. The end of the energy discount. Globalization was lubricated by cheap energy. Specifically, the U.S. security guarantee over the Middle East, and cheap Russian gas flowing into Europe. Germany built an industrial empire on a simple bet. They would make high-end cars and machinery, and they would power the factories with dirt-cheap natural gas from Russia. It was a marriage of convenience. German engineering plus Russian resources equals massive profit. That marriage ended in divorce. And the divorce was violent. Visual. Footage of the Nord Stream pipeline bubbling in the ocean. When the pipelines were cut, the math changed overnight. German industry suddenly faced energy costs 3, 4, 5 times higher than their competitors in America or China. Chemical plants started shutting down. Steel mills went idle. Companies like BASF started looking to build factories in China or the US, leaving Europe behind. But this isn't just about Europe. This is about the fragmentation of global energy markets. For decades, there was one global price for oil. Now, we are seeing a fractured market. Friendly nations get one price. Enemy nations get another. Sanctions. Price caps. Shadow fleets of tankers turning off their transponders in the night. Energy is no longer a commodity. It is a weapon. And there is another layer to this energy crisis. The green transition. Visual. Massive wind farms and solar arrays, but then cut to a copper mine. We are trying to electrify the world. We want EVs. We want solar panels. We want wind turbines. But you cannot move sunlight in a tanker. You cannot ship wind across the ocean. Fossil fuels were easy to trade globally. Renewables are inherently local. If you want cheap energy in the future, you have to be where the sun shines or the wind blows. You can't just import it. This changes where factories are built. Energy-intensive industries will move to places with cheap local power. They will leave the places that rely on imports. This breaks the global chain. It forces production to move back to the source of energy. The distance between the power plant and the factory floor is shrinking, and that shrinks the world. But energy is just the fuel. The engine requires something else. Security. And security used to be free. Or at least, it felt free to the corporations. Argument number 4. The geopolitical risk premium. Since 1945, the United States Navy has patrolled the world's oceans. They protected trade for everyone. It didn't matter if you were an ally or a rival. If you had a container ship, The U.S. Navy insured pirates didn't take it. This was a bribe. The U.S. said to the world, "We will protect your trade if you side with us against the Soviets." It worked. But the Cold War ended 30 years ago. And the U.S. is tired. Americans are asking, why are we spending billions to protect ships carrying Chinese goods to Europe? The bribe is expiring. The U.S. is pulling back. We are seeing the return of piracy. We are seeing the return of state-sponsored seizures of ships. Look at the insurance rates for shipping. Every time a missile flies in the Middle East, the cost to insure a ship spikes. Companies are starting to calculate a new line item on their balance sheets. Geopolitical risk. Imagine you are a CEO. You want to build a new semiconductor plant. Do you build it in Taiwan? Taiwan produces 90% of the world's advanced chips. It is a miracle of manufacturing. It is also sitting next to a superpower that claims it as its own territory. If China blockades Taiwan, the global economy stops instantly. Not slows down. Stops. Trillions of dollars vaporized in days. So, do you build that factory in Taiwan? Or do you build it in Arizona? Arizona is expensive. The labor is expensive. The regulations are annoying. But Arizona is not going to be invaded by the People's Liberation Army. That safety costs money. That is the risk premium. We are moving from just in time to just in case to just in friend's backyard. Friend shoring. Trading only with allies. It sounds nice. It sounds safe. But it is inefficient. And inefficiency means inflation. We are voluntarily choosing a more expensive world because the cheap world became too dangerous. But the danger isn't just physical. It isn't just about missiles and ships. The danger is digital. And this brings us to a cost that most people don't even see coming. The invisible wall being built across the internet. Argument number 5. Digital balkanization. We used to think the internet was a cloud. A borderless utopia where information flowed freely. Data didn't care about passports. An app made in California worked in Cairo. A server in Dublin could store the photos of a user in Delhi. That dream is dead. The internet is splitting into splinters. It is what experts call the splinter net. Nations are waking up to the reality that data is the new oil. And they don't want their oil flowing into foreign pipelines. China built the Great Firewall years ago. They realized early that if they controlled the data, they controlled the population. But now, everyone is doing it. Europe has GDPR. Strict rules on where data can go. India is banning Chinese apps. The United States is threatening to ban TikTok. Why? Because they are afraid of espionage? Partly. But mostly, it is about economic sovereignty. If you are a global company today, you cannot just have one IT system. You need a system for China, a system for Europe, a system for America. You need servers in every country you operate in. You need lawyers in every jurisdiction. You have to navigate a minefield of conflicting laws. This destroys the economies of scale. Software used to be the ultimate global product because you could write it once and sell it everywhere. Now, you have to rewrite it for every border you cross. This is a hidden tax on innovation. It slows down progress. It raises costs. And it forces companies to choose sides. Are you an American tech company? Or a Chinese tech company? You can no longer be both. The middle ground is vanishing. But while the internet is breaking apart, the factories are changing from the inside. And this brings us to the 6th driver of deglobalization. The one that makes the cheap labor argument irrelevant. Argument number 6. The automation equation. Let's go back to the beginning. Why did we go to China? Cheap hands. Human beings were cheaper than machines. But technology moves in only one direction. It gets better. And it gets cheaper. Robots are getting smarter. AI is getting faster. The cost of automation is plummeting. We have reached the tipping point. The parity point. Today, in many industries, it costs the same amount to have a robot make a product in Texas as it does to have a human make it in Vietnam. If the cost is the same, why would you ship it across the ocean? Why would you deal with customs? Why would you risk pirates? Why would you wait 4 weeks for delivery? If the robot is the same price, you build the factory next to the customer. This sounds like good news, doesn't it? Factories coming home. Made in USA, or made in UK again. But here is the dark twist. The factories are coming back, but the jobs are not. Globalization 1.0 was about chasing cheap labor. Deglobalization is about eliminating labor entirely. We are seeing a massive wave of reshoring. Companies are bringing production back to the West, but they are building dark factories. Factories that run 24 hours a day with the lights off, because robots don't need to see. This destroys the political argument for globalization. Developing nations can no longer get rich by selling cheap labor. That ladder has been pulled up. If you are a poor country today, you cannot follow the path of China or South Korea, because no one needs your sweat anymore. They have machines. This traps billions of people in poverty, and it creates a fortress mentality in the rich world. We don't need you. That is the message the West is sending to the global South. And that message breeds resentment. It breeds conflict. It accelerates the breakup of the world order. Which brings us to the final, inevitable result. The structure of the new world. Argument number 7. The new regionalism. Globalization was a web. Everything connected to everything. The future is not a web. It is a series of walled gardens. We are seeing the formation of massive trade blocs. The fortress of North America, US, Canada, Mexico. They have food. They have energy. They have industry. They are self-sufficient. The fortress of Europe, trying desperately to integrate before they decline. The fortress of China and its tributaries, trying to build a system that doesn't need the US dollar. Trade will still happen, but it will happen inside these blocks. Germany will trade with France. Texas will trade with Mexico. Japan will trade with Australia. But trade between the blocks? That will be hard. That will be expensive. That will be heavily regulated. We are returning to a world of empires. Not empires of land, but empires of commerce. And if you are a country left on the outside, if you are not in a block, God help you, because you will be drifting alone in a stormy ocean, while the giants close their gates. Visual, close up on the narrator. The background is stark, stripped down. So, what does this actually mean for you? Why should you care if a factory moves or a shipping route changes? Because this transition is inflationary by nature. For 40 years, globalization acted as a deflationary force. It pushed prices down. It kept interest rates low. It allowed you to buy more stuff for less money. That wind has stopped blowing. Now, the wind is blowing in your face. Building resilient supply chains costs money. Paying for security costs money. Building new factories in expensive countries costs money. Who pays for that? You do. We are entering a decade of structurally higher inflation. The cheap t-shirt. The cheap electronics. The cheap food. Those were the fruits of a specific moment in history. A moment that is over. You need to adjust your expectations. The future is not about more for less. It is about paying more to ensure you get anything at all. Reliability is the new luxury. We are not just seeing a recession. We are seeing a restoration, a return to the historical norm. For most of human history, trade was dangerous, expensive, and regional. The last 30 years were the anomaly. We were lucky. But luck runs out. Visual. The screen fades to a cinematic wide shot of a horizon. A storm is clearing, but the landscape has changed. It is rugged, divided by walls, but sturdy. This is not the end of the world. Humanity adapts. We always do. Regional economies can be strong. Local supply chains can be robust. Communities might become tighter, more self-reliant. But the transition, the years between the old world dying and the new one being born, that is where the danger lies. That is where the volatility lives. You are living through the pivot point. The tectonic plates of history are shifting under your feet right now. Don't close your eyes. Don't assume the ground is stable. Watch the cracks. Understand the costs. Because only the people who see the reality can prepare for the storm. Let's dig deeper into the mechanics of this collapse. Because to understand where we are going, you have to understand the violence of the separation. We talked about the 7 arguments. But arguments are abstract. Let's look at the blood and iron reality of argument number 2, logistics. Most people think of the ocean as empty space. A blue void where ships just float from point A to point B. This is false. The ocean is a terrain. It has highways. It has back alleys. It has choke points. Look at the Strait of Malacca, between Malaysia and Indonesia. It is 1.7 miles wide at its narrowest point. 1.7 miles. 40% of world trade passes through that tiny gap. Oil for China. Goods for Europe. Raw materials for Japan. If a single supertanker sinks in the wrong spot, or if a navy decides to blockade it, the global economy has a heart attack. For decades, we didn't worry about Malacca because the US Navy was the policeman. But now, China is building a navy specifically designed to control these waters. India is building a navy to counter them. The ocean is becoming a contested zone. And it's not just the water. It's the boxes themselves. The shipping container. The humble metal box that changed the world. Before the container, loading a ship took weeks. Armies of men carrying sacks. The container standardized everything. It made loading a ship take hours. It reduced the cost of shipping by 90%. But the container system relies on flow. It relies on the box moving. During the pandemic, we saw what happens when the boxes stop. We had empty containers in America, and goods piling up in China. We had ships waiting off the coast of Los Angeles for weeks. Why? Because we stripped the system of all its slack. We fired the extra truck drivers. We sold the extra chassis. We ran the system at 100% capacity to maximize profit. So when demand spiked by 5%, the system broke. This fragility is structural. It hasn't been fixed. And as trade wars heat up, countries will start weaponizing these bottlenecks. Imagine China deciding to ban the export of rare earth minerals. They don't need to fire a missile. They just need to leave the containers on the dock. This is the new warfare. Supply chain warfare. It is quiet. It is slow. But it can destroy a nation's economy faster than a bombing run. Let's look closer at the chip war. This is the most critical example of the hidden cost. A modern car has 1,500 to 3,000 chips in it. Your toaster has a chip. Your missiles have chips. If you cannot get chips, you cannot be a modern nation. TSMC in Taiwan makes the most advanced chips. The ones in your iPhone. The ones in AI servers. Building a fab, a chip factory, in Taiwan is cheaper than anywhere else. They have the ecosystem. They have the engineers. They have the government subsidies. But the West realized that relying on one island, an island in the crosshairs of a superpower, was suicide. So the US passed the CHIPS Act. Billions of dollars to bribe companies to build in America. Europe passed their own CHIPS Act. Japan is doing the same. We are duplicating the supply chain. Instead of one massive, efficient hub in Taiwan, we are building 3 or 4 smaller, less efficient hubs around the world. This is the definition of de-efficiency. We are spending hundreds of billions of dollars just to get back to where we started, but with more safety. The product doesn't get better. The phone doesn't get faster. It just ensures the phone can still be made if China invades Taiwan. That is an insurance premium. And you are paying it. Every time you buy a piece of electronics in the next 10 years, You are paying a geopolitics tax. You are paying for the concrete being poured in Arizona. You are paying for the redundant machinery. This is the price of a divided world. And how do we pay for this? This brings us to a sublayer of the breakdown: the weaponization of money. For a globalized world, you need a global currency. The US dollar. It was the lubricant. Everyone trusted it. Everyone used it. But when Russia invaded Ukraine, the US did something unprecedented. They froze Russia's dollar reserves. They kicked Russia out of the SWIFT banking system. It was a moral move. It was a punishment. But it sent a shockwave through the rest of the world. Every dictator, every autocrat, every rival of the US looked at that and thought, if they can do that to Russia, they can do that to me. My money isn't safe in dollars. So they started looking for alternatives. Gold, yuan, crypto, barter systems. We are seeing the slow fragmentation of the financial system. If the world breaks into trade blocs, the money will break too. This makes trade harder. If you are an Indian company wanting to buy oil from Russia, you can't use dollars. You have to use rupees or rubles or dirhams. It adds friction. It adds exchange rate risk. Every transaction becomes a negotiation not just about price, but about how to pay. Friction slows things down. Friction creates heat. Heat burns money. Let's go back to energy. Argument number 3. The green transition is often sold as a way to save the planet. And hopefully, it is. But in the short term, it is a massive disruptor of globalization. Fossil fuels created a global market. Oil is dense. You can put it in a barrel and ship it anywhere. A barrel of oil in Saudi Arabia is worth the same as a barrel of oil in Texas. Electricity is different. You lose power over distance. You cannot transmit electricity from Australia to Europe. It dissipates. So, energy creates local gravity. If you have cheap hydropower in Quebec, aluminum smelters will move there. If you have cheap solar in the Sahara, maybe hydrogen plants move there. But you can't just buy it on the open market like oil. This means countries are scrambling to secure critical minerals. Lithium, cobalt, nickel, copper. These are the new oil. And guess where they are? They are not evenly distributed. China controls the processing of most of them. Africa has the raw rocks. South America has the lithium triangle. The race to secure these resources is the new scramble for Africa. It is neo-colonialism with a green face. The US and Europe are trying to bypass China. They are trying to make deals directly with mines in Africa and South America. They are trying to build processing plants at home. Again, duplication. China already has the factories to refine lithium. The West is building new ones to compete. It is redundant. It is expensive. But it is necessary for survival. Because if China turns off the tap of processed lithium, the green revolution in the West dies in a week. No batteries. No EVs. No grid storage. The vulnerability is total. And the West is panicking. Argument number 7. Regionalism. Let's look at what this actually looks like. The USMCA, United States, Mexico, Canada Agreement. This is the prototype for the future. It is a vertically integrated fortress. Canada has the raw materials, the energy, and the water. The US has the capital, the technology, and the consumer market. Mexico has the labor and the manufacturing base. Together, they don't really need the rest of the world. They can feed themselves. They can fuel themselves. They can build their own stuff. This is why the US is less interested in patrolling the Middle East. They don't need the oil anymore. But look at Europe. He draws a circle around Europe, but the line is shaky. Europe is in trouble. They don't have enough energy. They don't have the raw materials. They have an aging population. They rely on exports to survive. If globalization reverses, Europe suffers the most. They need open markets to sell their BMWs and their Louis Vuitton bags. If the world closes up, who buys German cars? If China makes their own cars, and America puts up tariffs, where does Europe go? This is the crisis of the European model. And then look at China. He draws a circle around China. A massive fortress, but one that is starving for inputs. They need food. They need energy. They need customers. China is trying to build the Belt and Road, a physical network of roads and pipes to connect them to resources without using the ocean. Why? Because they know they can't control the ocean. They are trying to build a backdoor to the world economy. A land route. But land transport is expensive. Trains are more expensive than ships. Trucks are more expensive than trains. China is betting on a less efficient future because it is a safer future for them. Everywhere you look, the logic is the same. Safety over efficiency. Resilience over profit. Politics over economics. Let's return to the machine. Argument number 6. Automation. This is the wild card. The element that makes this time different from the 1930s. In the past, when trade broke down, it led to mass unemployment and poverty because we needed people to make things. Now, we are entering the age of the lights-out factory. Philips has a factory in the Netherlands that makes electric shavers. It runs 24/7. It has almost no humans inside. It produces shavers cheaper than the old factory in China did. This is the great equalizer. If labor cost is zero, then the only thing that matters is energy cost and raw material cost. This changes the map of winners and losers. Who wins in an automated world? Countries with cheap energy. Countries with stable laws. Countries with educated technicians to fix the robots. Who loses? Countries whose only asset was cheap people. Bangladesh, Vietnam, Pakistan, Cambodia. Their economic model is based on the idea that they can sell labor cheaper than a machine. That window is closing. It is a tragedy in the making. Billions of people were promised that if they worked hard in a sweatshop for 20 years, their children would go to college and their country would get rich. That is what happened in Japan, in Korea, in China. But the ladder is being pulled up. The robot is kicking away the ladder. This will drive migration. If you cannot sell your labor in your own country because a robot in America is doing the job, you will try to move to America. We are going to see massive migration pressures. Millions of people moving from the useless economies to the automated economies. And this will trigger political backlashes. Walls, borders, guards. The deglobalization of trade leads to the deglobalization of people. Barriers go up everywhere. It is all connected. The robot in Ohio causes the migration crisis on the border. The migration crisis causes the political shift to nationalism. The nationalism causes the tariffs. The tariffs cause the supply chain to break. The broken supply chain causes the inflation. It is a feedback loop, and it is spinning faster every day. Let's talk about the mindset shift. For the last 40 years, the corporate mindset was just in time. The consumer mindset was, I want it now, and I want it cheap. The political mindset was, integration prevents war. All three mindsets are shifting simultaneously. The corporate mindset is now resilience and redundancy. The consumer mindset is shifting to scarcity and inflation anxiety. And the political mindset? Independence prevents blackmail. Nations want to be independent. They don't want to rely on their enemies for masks, or medicine, or chips. Do you remember the early days of COVID? Countries were hijacking shipments of masks on the tarmac. Allies were stealing from allies. France seized trucks of masks heading to Britain. The US used the Defense Production Act to stop exports to Canada. That was a glimpse of the future. When the crisis hits, there are no friends. There are only national interests. Governments learned a hard lesson in 2020. If we don't make it here, we don't have it. So now, they are forcing industries to come home. pharmaceuticals, food production, defense technology. They are using subsidies. They are using tariffs. They are using bans. They are forcing deglobalization by decree. Visual, a supermarket shelf. The prices are changing rapidly, ticking up like a slot machine. And this brings us back to you, the consumer, the victim of this restructuring. You are going to see the bifurcation of goods. Cheap, mass-produced disposable goods might still come from cheap places, but essential goods, cars, electronics, medicine, energy, those will be produced within the block, and they will cost more. You will have to keep your car longer. You will repair your phone instead of upgrading it every year. We are moving away from the throwaway society. Not because we became environmentalists overnight, but because we can't afford to throw things away anymore. The economics of disposability relied on cheap global labor and cheap global shipping. Both are gone. We are returning to a maintenance society. Fix it, keep it, value it. It's a harder life. But maybe, just maybe, it's a more grounded one. We need to address the C word. Collapse. Is globalization collapsing? Collapse implies a pile of rubble. Rome collapsed. The Bronze Age collapsed. This is not that. This is a reversal. A retreat. Think of the tide going out. When the tide was high, globalization, all the boats floated. Now the tide is going out. We are seeing who is grounded on the rocks. The system isn't disappearing. We will still trade coffee and bananas. We will still download movies. But the deep integration, the idea that the Chinese economy and the American economy are one single organism, that is being surgically separated. And surgery hurts. There is blood. There is trauma. There is recovery time. We are on the operating table right now. The 2020s are the recovery room. It's going to be painful. It's going to be confusing. But the patient will survive. The patient will just look different. Less connected. More scarred. More armored. Let's look at the timeline. How long does this take? We are roughly 5 years into this process. It started seriously around 2016 to 2018. Trade wars. Brexit. It accelerated in 2020 with the pandemic. It exploded in 2022 with the war in Ukraine. We are in the middle of the transition. Historically, these shifts take 10 to 15 years to settle. We have a decade of turbulence ahead. During this decade, we will see sudden shortages of random things. Remember the chip shortage? The baby formula shortage? Get used to that. Energy price spikes whenever a geopolitical tension rises. Labor strikes as workers demand higher wages to match inflation. And a radical reshaping of the investment landscape. If you are an investor, the playbook of the last 40 years is garbage. Buy tech and hold. Bonds are safe. Maybe not anymore. In a resource-constrained world, stuff matters more than software. Mines, farms, factories, energy grids. The physical world is taking its revenge on the digital world. You can't eat Bitcoin. You can't live in the metaverse. When the supply chains break, you realize that the physical economy is the only economy that actually keeps you alive. This is the revenge of the real. We spent so much time obsessed with apps and financial derivatives that we forgot how to dig holes and build things. Now, we have to remember. And remembering is expensive. We have to retrain a generation of workers. We have to rebuild infrastructure that we let rot. We have to upgrade ports that are 50 years old. This is the CapEx supercycle. Capital expenditure. Governments and companies are going to spend trillions building the new architecture of the world. This spending creates jobs. It creates activity. But it also creates inflation. Because all that money is chasing a limited amount of steel, concrete, and copper. So, the next time you see a price hike at the grocery store, Don't just blame the politician of the day. Understand the deeper mechanics. You are paying for the rewiring of the planet. Let's summarize the 7 pressures one last time. The illusion of cheapness. We ran out of cheap labor. The logistics nightmare. Just in time is dead. Just in case is expensive. The energy pivot. Green energy is local. Fossil fuel markets are fractured. The security premium. We have to pay to protect our stuff again. Digital balkanization. The internet is splitting. Data is trapped. The automation equation. Robots bring factories home, but kill jobs. The new regionalism. The world is forming into armed trade blocs. These are not theories. These are observable facts happening right now. You can see them in the data. You can see them in the news. You can feel them in your wallet. The global village is burning down. And from the ashes, the regional fortresses are rising. So, is there any hope? Yes. The new system might be more stable. If we make things closer to home, we pollute less in shipping. If we rely on local energy, we are less vulnerable to foreign dictators. If we value resilience, our societies might become less fragile. We are trading peak efficiency for peak survival. It is a maturity test for civilization. Can we build a world that doesn't collapse every time there is a hiccup? Can we build an economy that serves the people who live in it, rather than just the spreadsheet? The cost is high, but the alternative, total collapse, is higher. We are paying the insurance premium for the survival of our way of life. It hurts to pay the bill, but it hurts more to lose the house. We have walked through the wreckage of the old world. We have seen the blueprints of the new one. It is a lot to process. It is scary to realize that the rules of the game have changed without anyone asking your permission. But ignorance is not a strategy. Denial is not a shield. The people who will thrive in this new era are the ones who accept the reality of the cost. They are the ones who understand that the era of easy is over. We are entering the era of hard. Hard money, hard assets, hard borders, hard choices. But remember this. Humans are built for hard. We didn't evolve in a shopping mall. We evolved in the storm. We are adaptable. We are resilient. The reversal of globalization is not the end of the story. It is just the end of a chapter. A chapter that was comfortable, but unsustainable. Now, we turn the page. The world is getting smaller. But maybe that means we can take better care of our corner of it. The supply chains are shrinking. But maybe that means we will know the people who make our food and build our homes. The prices are going up. But maybe that means we will learn to value what we have. This is the Great Reset. Not the conspiracy theory one. The real one. The physical, economic, and geopolitical reset of the 21st century. You are watching history happen. Don't just watch it. Understand it. Prepare for it. I want to leave you with one final thought to carry with you. We spent 40 years building a world where everything was connected, so we could buy things we didn't need, with money we didn't have, from people we didn't know. Now that the connections are breaking, who will you rely on when the ship doesn't arrive? Look around you. Look at your community. Look at your skills. That is your supply chain now. If this analysis opened your eyes to the hidden mechanics of our world, if it made you think differently about that package on your doorstep, then my job is done. But the story doesn't end here. There is a deeper history of how we got here, and where the next major conflict will likely break out. If you want to stay ahead of the curve, click this video right here. It connects the dots even further. Thank you for watching. Thank you for thinking. I'll see you in the next video.